So Tucker Carlson recently did a talk. I believe he was doing it on behalf of Mint. And he was talking about Trump's economy, people owning houses. And some people are insinuating that he actually is turning against Trump even more. Now, I remember when Tucker was one of Trump's best friends. They were best buds. They were best buds. They were in it together, in it to win it. And now they're saying that he's turning on Trump.
At some point, the basic economics
he was there on behalf of Turning Point USA? Okay, I got it.
really matter. And they matter because, not that it's bad that rich people are getting richer, it's bad that everyone else is getting poorer. And it's especially bad the young people can't afford homes. Let me just put a very precise point on this. If you want a measure of how your economy is doing, I personally favor eliminating GDP as a measure. I don't even know what that is. It's clearly not relevant. They tell me Japan has a stagnant GDP. Have you been to Tokyo? It's the single most radicalizing experience you'll ever have because it's just so nice. You lost the war? Really? Can we lose a war and wind up like this? GDP. No. I don't know what even that is. The total economic activity. Oh, no. My measure is really simple. I got a bunch of kids. Can they afford houses with full-time jobs at like 27, 28? And the answer is no way. And the answer is that 35-year-olds with really good jobs can't afford a house unless they stretch and go deep into debt. And I just think that's a total disaster.
Let me tell you why Tucker is off on this. As much as we like Tucker for his journalistic integrity and everything that he's done in the spaces and getting good interviews and going and interview people in different spaces, let me tell you why Tucker is off. Is because we have to rethink the way that we understand how money works. First of all, most people are having self-inflicted wounds. That goes without saying. But secondly, Tucker is operating based off of a premise that was given to him at a time that it was beneficial for the banks to then introduce this to you so that more people can have homes. Y'all do realize that there was a time where people actually just paid for what they wanted and then they built upon it. That people practiced group economics. Tucker Carlson is speaking from the perspective of a person that lived through an experience that allowed for him to be able to get things at a cheaper price, make things affordable to him, and then that was a thing that was sold as the way that we supposed to do things in America. But that is not true. It is not true. Just because they were able to afford a 30-year mortgage does not mean that a 30-year mortgage was the thing that we should have went for in the first place. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so it's easy to impress upon people that are under duress or can't afford a mortgage or saying that, well, I don't like the housing prices or, you know what, interest rates are too high and all of this stuff. It's easy to impress upon them this type of rhetoric, but in reality, we were sold a lie when you decided or your grandparents decided to get a 30-year mortgage and still have to pay property taxes for the rest of their life in the first place. It's the same talking points. I don't like the fact that my kids are not going to be able to afford some of the same things that I was able to afford when I was coming up. Guess what? There are still communities that practice group economics. If you don't believe me, go over there to Dearborn and Dearborn Heights right now. It's 12 luxury cars inside of the driveway of a 6-bedroom house, and everybody is still living together and living with their mama until they get to the position where they can buy the house next door, and then they're going to build that up too. Hold on, AD. You agreed that houses was unaffordable when Biden was in office. Let me help you to understand something. Everything is unaffordable to the person that can't afford it. Everything is unaffordable to the person that can't afford it. Cars are more expensive than ever before. So what do? Do you still continue to participate in the same system, the same way that then got you in a situation that you in that you can't afford in the first place? No. What do? You go and buy a used car and you run up a bag until you can get to the position to where you can afford what you want. You don't continue to do the same thing in the system. Yes, it's unaffordable for the traditional way in which you think you're supposed to do it, but let's be clear. You don't have to play the game. You are playing a keep up with the Joneses, let's continue to make the banks rich game. That is not the way that you continue to run up a bag, and this is one of the reasons why we have the bag chasers, so I can teach you an alternative way of thinking. Do you understand what I'm saying? Just because it is unaffordable does not mean that it's not attainable. Just because it is unaffordable in the traditional way, listen, you don't. When my parents, I'll give you an example. When my parents was coming up, we owned our home. Because there's some additional context that's missing right now. When I was being raised, when we had four brothers, I got three brothers, it was four boys, and my father and my mother, right? We had an upstairs, we had like an attic area that my parents had a bedroom in. It was two bedrooms on the main floor and a living room, and then you had the kitchen. And it was a basement. And so I had a bedroom. My brother had a bedroom on the main floor. My parents stayed in the upstairs. And then my two older brothers, they had the basement. They turned the basement into their little bachelor pad. But we owned the home. And when we talk about home ownership, you have to remember that the majority of people that own their home, especially in the black community, own their home in the places that we now call the hood. And if you go into those same places, most of those homes are still worth exactly what they were when you moved out of it. And so home ownership was not going out into the places that you couldn't afford to buy a home in order to raise your family. Community was where people actually knew their neighbors. We wasn't so focused on making sure that we went out into certain communities. We changed it into what we wanted it to be. Or if we didn't like anything, we had the neighborhood watch or the patrol or whatever, so on and so forth. And so the homes that our parents owned were in the places that we don't want to be today. So if you're sitting here telling me that it's unaffordable, I'm telling you that it's unaffordable in the places that you are being sold that you deserve to live on Instagram and on YouTube and on all of these other places, because when your parents gave you their home, you sold it or you let it go to waste because you didn't want to live there anymore. But they owned their home. And they were willing to raise 4 or 5 kids, and y'all had bunk beds. Every kid didn't have their own bedroom. Every kid didn't have their own ability to have privacy. Every kid didn't have their own iPad and phones and all these devices that you finance every single month for $400, $500, and $600 a month because you got 10 devices all on the same plan. That wasn't the case. The culture was different. How we sold things. The reason why things are unaffordable today is because we're financing everything because we're so easily sold on something that we don't need. And instead of you adjusting and saying, let's reset and let's get back to the core of what it is that we need to do in order to build success and practice group economics, we don't do that anymore. We don't do that anymore. So if you want to compare it, then you also have to compare it in its entirety and look at the entire context of how we were raised, why we were raised, why we were so together, why you had so much community, why it wasn't a big deal for everybody to be in the same house, because you'll drive by that same house today and say, I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we did it. It wasn't uncommon that, listen, I couldn't wait to get to the basement. Now we say, if you live in your mama's basement, you dusty. I knew that when I got to high school that my brothers was probably gonna move out, and man, I get to have a whole basement to myself. Oh, dog, I'm gonna have all kind of holes down here. It wasn't nothing popping. Wasn't nothing popping. Wasn't nothing popping. Nigga, the basement was right next to the washroom, and when mama came down there in order to wash her clothes, you could hear the dryer and you can hear the washing machine, and she walked right past your bed in order to go and wash some clothes, and she went right back upstairs. And you put a sheet up in behind there. The bathroom that we made for the basement was the same temperature as outside. I'm telling you the honest to God truth. The bathroom in the basement was the same temperature as outside. If it was cold, you hurried up and you got your shit off in there. Or if it was warm outside, the only time that you really wanted to be in the bathroom, and it was small, it was like a closet. The only time that you really wanted to use the bathroom in the basement because it was spiders down there was when it was fall and when it was spring. But when it was summer, it was super hot. And when it was winter, it was super cold in there. I'm going to tell you the truth. We got revisionist history and we then changed the narrative of what the past is in order to mean something different than what it really was. But it was different. It was different. It was 100% different. And if you want to be successful, you got to remember the lessons by which you came up. And then you take the lessons that you learned today because you want to improve upon whatever it was that you learned from your past. And that's where I come in because I'm going to give you the game on how to capitalize off of it after we get to the fundamentals. Now we got more information than ever before. We got it at our fingertips and we still don't leverage the information and we say that everything is unaffordable while at the same time DoorDash and everything. Telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. If we want to be successful, we got to cut off the spigot of financing, Afterpay, Klarna, vacations, Tulum. Nigga, I didn't even get on my first plane till I was like 19 years old, 18, 19 years old. It's the truth.
It's a complete disaster. Why? Two reasons. One, if people don't own things, they don't feel ownership of the country they're in. And the country.
What y'all know about, see, y'all may not know anything about this. What you know about you can't flush the toilet while somebody is in the shower because the water is going to turn extra hot. What you know about, hey, man, don't use up all of the hot water or else you're going to have to wait an hour for somebody to take a shower unless you want to take a cold shower. Now, we got automatic, never run out of hot water, all of the modern conveniences. Man, look at this, look at that, whatever, so on and so forth. You don't know nothing about that? You don't know nothing about that. You don't know nothing about flushing the toilet on somebody in order to make the hot turn scalding hot because that's the way that the system was set up. You don't know nothing about that. That ain't your life. You privileged. You was born in 1998. And now you sitting here telling me about what it is like. Anton, everything different. You don't know nothing about this. Nigga, I will run laps around you.
Gets super volatile because people feel like they've got nothing to lose. When you have a lawn, trust me, you're thinking long term. Second, it's really hard to have a family without a house. It is. It's like super fun to live in an apartment if, there's like a bar downstairs, you're in a cool neighborhood. I'm in East Village, it's so cool. Try to have 3 kids. You're not going to have 3 kids there. You can't. Nobody wants to raise their kids in that neighborhood. Nobody wants to raise their kids in an apartment. People do it because they have to. Nobody wants to.
Everybody, look how, see, even Tucker, he's so removed. Nobody wants to raise a family in an apartment. Nigga, an apartment was a privilege. Let me give y'all some other insight. You don't have to have kids while you broke. You don't have to. You know that, right?
People want a little house, not some McMansion, just a little normal house. That is the actual American dream.
They want a little house in California right next to Disney World, though. That costs $800,000.
And that is what is totally unattainable for young people. And so the only young people in general that you will ever meet who have houses are young people whose parents help them. And God bless their parents. That's a perfectly great thing to do for your kids. But most people's parents can't afford to do that.
Most people are raised in single parent households. See, come on, man. Come on. Listen. I like Republicans. I like conservatives, but I think that they off and they so far removed. It is much more difficult to do something for your child when you're raising them in a single parent household. How come we don't go back and say, well, yeah, back then most families were together and it was less likely for you to be raised by a single mother, which gave them more economic power. And they didn't have as many bills because they was willing to sacrifice and they didn't need big cars and big homes in order to justify to their friends that they was living a certain lifestyle because everybody was in the same space and everybody was just trying to get by. See, we don't want to add that part in there. Of course, it's going to be much more difficult because You decided, and now we've over sexualized society to where we become so liberal and it's not cool to stay with the person that you're supposed to be with. I ain't gonna listen, I can't tell you how many times that I get comments, emails, DMs, people saying something. Hey man, this person said something about you. Okay, well, let me say, man, he don't know nothing about this life. He is square. He done been with this chick for 21 years. Wasn't that the goal? You dumb motherfucker. Ain't that the goal? I don't want to go to Thailand and risk whether or not this thing got a penis that's the same size, smaller, or bigger than mine. I don't want to do that. I don't want to. I want to go to another country so I can enjoy the culture. I don't want to risk picking one and then they say, "What up, nigga?" I don't want to do that. Ain't that the goal? Wasn't the goal for us to eventually get to a point to where we can send our kids off to college, make sure that they don't have no student loans, have a barbecue with friends over, and then have a comfortable retirement and then have something to do when you get older?